Everybody has something they're horribly embarrassed about. Maybe you said something really stupid in class, or you farted during a presentation. For me, it's the fact that I spent $150 to back this game, and then I spent another $20 to actually buy it because I couldn't remember the login to get the code for the game. Yikes. I'll give a little backstory before we actually get into the meat of this video. Shaq Fu was a fighting game made in 1994 by some companies you've never heard of. Made for the SNES, the Genesis SNES, the Game Boy, the Game Gear, what? And the Amiga. It had a cult following after a while. I'm pretty sure it was a fucking flop. I'm not doing any research because I honestly don't fucking care enough. After a while, like during the age of YouTube, it started getting more of a stronger cult following as like a meme fighting game. There's like the Fighterpedia video on it. There's tons of videos. I'm pretty sure JonTron did a video at one point maybe, or one of the Normal Boots guys did a video on it. So when Shaq announced that he was going to do a Kickstarter for the game back in 2014, everyone backed it kind of as a meme. I backed it for two reasons. One, I wanted the meme of Shaq Fu 2 to be a reality because I actually kind of liked the original one. It was a fun fighting game. It was really shitty. I mean, it wasn't that shitty, but it was bad. I mean, I played worse fighting games. The second reason was if you paid $150 as a backer, you could be a voice in the game. Now, at the time, 4 or 5 years ago, I was a very impressionable, stupid child. Still kind of am. I was a lad in his early years of high school with a dream of becoming a voice actor. But I had this idea in my head where I was like, I honestly don't know why, but I went, maybe if I'm in this game, I'll be able to kickstart my career as a voice actor. As stupid as that sounds, I was like, maybe I'll meet somebody and be like, get connections or something. I honestly don't know what I was thinking. And little did I know that this was a colossal waste of my fucking money. I mean, honestly, I should have seen this from a mile away, but I was just so caught in the moment that I did it. Not only am I not in the credits as a backer, I'm not even in the game. I honestly should be happy about that one though. So 4 or 5 years ago when the IndieGoGo launched, I was a sophomore in high school, I want to say. So this is right before I started getting a shit ton of emails from colleges and other universities, so I just never saw that email. I remember logging in senior year out of morbid curiosity into that email before I forgot its login, and I saw I had 3,000 emails from universities and colleges, so the chance of me seeing that was non-existent. So the IndieGoGo launched, and rightfully so, everyone went, Shaq, why do you need to crowdfund this game? You're a gazillionaire. But everyone kind of just brushed that under the rug after a bit and then just funded the game. It raised $458,884, and if you go to the IndieGoGo's comment section, you can read all the disgruntled people going, I'm not in this, I'm missing backer rewards, my code doesn't work. Like, this is a fucking disaster through and through. Now let's list all the things that the IndieGoGo said was going to have in the game or was going to happen but never did. The first thing is the Shaq Fu, a Legend Reborn tournament. A contribution of $20 will guarantee your entry to an international tournament which will culminate in Los Angeles. The winners will face off against Shaq, where the winner takes home $2,500. The tournament only happen if the 450,000 goal is met, which it is. After a simple Google search, I see no talks of this tournament anywhere. Shaq Fu is what the original game should have been, an instant classic. We're talking Streets of Rage meets Street Fighter meets Devil May Cry. Play against your buddies in co-op mode or against each other in player versus player combat, neither which are in the game. In Shaq Fu, dozens of unique and varied enemies await which require careful use of tactics. You mean the same 5 enemy types that are just reskinned depending on what level you're on? I'm not really going to get into the gameplay specifics just yet, so keep in mind what I'm saying here. Pimp your character with new moves and abilities. Select from different fighting styles. There is no character customization at all or any moves to unlock. Once you beat a boss, you unlock him and you can play as him in-game. No, you don't. Fight through the slums of Asian cities on the rooftops of skyscrapers, battle it out inside buildings, speedy nightclubs, and cause mayhem in the markets. There are 6 levels in the game, none which are skyscrapers, or a nightclub, or inside anything. The only thing this game is going in is the garbage bin.
Smash the enemies through the floor and leap down into a lower level. Barge through walls and forge your own path. Smash furniture, toss enemies through windows, and even collapse structures.
At most, you break a crate, maybe a fire hydrant. There is no throwing enemies. The game has some finisher moves, which I don't know how it does them. I think it's when only the enemies are alone next to you, and you just do like a shoryuken, or you do a German suplex.
Modifiers that change your appearance and enhance your skills. Transform into the monstrous Big Daddy O and crush your enemies. Twirl into what the fuck is that? How do I even say that?
Okay, so at most you get two different forms. You have Big Diesel, which is in the game. We'll talk more about why that's shitty later. And then we have the Shaqtus, where Shaq just turns into a giant cactus, which I assume is why they have this picture on the IndieGoGo of him in the morph suit.
Co-op gameplay. Grab a friend and battle it out in tandem.
There is no co-op in this game. There is no split screen.
Co-op's not your bag. Build your own character and fight the style and duke it out online or on the same machine against other players.
There is no character customization. There's no online. There's nothing. Now that we've gotten all the IndieGoGo shit out of the way, let's talk about the combat. It's awful. It's terrible. I honestly wasn't expecting much, but there's nothing there. Let me explain how every fight goes. You walk into the arena. Enemies start swarming you from left and right. Then you hit XXB, XXB, because your punches are so small and weak, but the size 22 kick is such a huge AoE that it knocks all the enemies away, mitigating that. This later becomes unusable when they introduce an enemy that's color-coded so you can't use the kick, and he just knocks you down if you try to use it anywhere near him because he snaps onto you. It's kind of like in DMC Devil May Cry where you have to use certain colored weapons against certain enemies or it breaks your combo strings. This is a terrible design philosophy. Never fucking do this. Not only is the combat shallow, the controls are fucking shit too. For some reason they thought it was a great idea to have the dodge be on the right stick where you have to go up and down, but you're mashing X the whole time, so it's really awkward and inconvenient. Why not just have dodge on the left bumper? Because you're not using it for anything else, because the right bumper is the dash, and right trigger and left trigger are both interact. LB is just sitting there wasted. Technically, so is LT. Not to mention, the dodge is completely fucking pointless. You know, in other games like Dark Souls, where the dodge move has invincibility frames, so you actually dodge things? Not in this, so when you try to dodge people with sweeps or swings that have a long radius, then you're just gonna get fucking hit. Why wouldn't you make it so you can dodge forwards and backwards? This is relegated to jumping, which is also completely pointless. So you're supposed to move up and down the stage with your stick, and then jump forward and backwards, but it's just so clunky and awkward, especially when you're caught in a giant crowd of people because they throw so many enemies at you. Enemy variety is virtually non-existent. There are 4 enemy types, and then they're reskinned on each level. There is the generic mob enemy that just runs at you and punches. They die in 2 hits. There's the enemy that you have to use the tackle through to stun them and then throw them. The large enemy, and then the projectile spammer. There are usable weapons, but they pretty much all fit into the same use. You swing them, and they break after maybe 3 hits. Same thing goes for the interactable items in the map. Most of the time, you just pick them up and throw them at people, and it makes a bowling ball sound. You wait a few seconds, and then they respawn. This ties into another core complaint with the combat in this game. While it is shallow, which can be okay in other games if they work around it, all they do for variety is throw a million enemies at you, and then they justify it by giving you these interactables or weapons that just keep respawning over and over again, so you don't get frustrated by being overwhelmed by a million enemies, completely mitigating any source of challenge in the game. It's incredibly boring and becomes tedious almost instantly. Your core gameplay shouldn't feel like a chore. Oh, what's that? You enter the room and everyone's running at you from both sides? Oh, well, just pick up this keg and start throwing it at them like bowling balls. Oh, what's that? You're getting rammed at by a million enemies? Oh, just pick up this sword. Just swing it at them. This also applies to the Shaq transformations. Big Diesel O, or whatever the fuck it's called, is completely broken. I tested it for 2 seconds and realized how much of a fatal flaw it has. So you just hold down the X button and it's a rapid succession of punches, and you could just move forward with that. Okay, that's fine. But it has an overheat meter. Now, usually in games, when it has an overheat meter, it punishes you for doing too much of the same thing for too long. Not in this game, though. It allows you to do a ground pound as soon as you overheat. Now, you may be thinking, well, if the gauge fills up to a certain point, then you get to use the ground pound. No, that's not how it works. You hit X once, you can instantly ground pound. So you just tap X and B in a rhythm, and then no one will ever get near you, killing them instantly. And that may seem like a bad thing, but you pretty much have to do this because they throw so many
fucking enemies at you.
The Shaq disc is the only other transformation in the game.
I have no idea how to explain the gameplay when you're the Shaq disc. I really want to lean to saying it's like a shmup, but it doesn't really feel like one. Basically, you turn into the Shaq disc, quote unquote, and you shoot pin needles. Enemies come from both sides, and you just run up and down the room and shoot at them and hope they don't get near you. This goes on for like 5 minutes at a time. It gets boring after the first 30 seconds because it doesn't feel good because you're just holding down the X button. Alright, I think that's enough complaining about combat for now. Let's talk about voice acting and overall laziness. Shaq's audio ranges from okay and serviceable to completely bored and doesn't want to be there. After they announced the whole pay to be in the game thing, I was wondering, so are they just going to fly people out? Or are they going to have them go to local studios? How are they going to record their voices? What if they don't have a mic or their mic quality is terrible? And then I thought there's no way, absolutely no way, that they're just going to have people record their audio and send it in. Well, they sure as fuck surprised me when I booted up the game and the first enemy I fought sounded like he was speaking through a fucking tin can.
Who the hell are you guys?
Back off, White Rice. We're here for the old man.
You can instantly spot which are the really bad IndieGoGo backer voices because they all sound like shit. Because they clearly just had like a webcam microphone or used their phone. Mind you, this is 2014, 2013, 2015. So the mics are not nearly as good as they are now on the phones. And it just sounds awful. Why would you have it like this? Come on, Shaq. You know you could spare some extra money to do this. Or if you don't want to spare the money, don't do this at all. Because all you're doing is manipulating naive people who have a dream. Like me. The full heal item in this game is Icy Hot, which is not surprising to anybody because Shaq has had a partnership with them for like 20 fucking years. But I swear, when he gets the Icy Hot item, it just plays a recording of an advert he's in. It goes, Icy Hot, and then he'll continue with the advert line the company wrote for him. It sounds so different and jarring that there's no way that they recorded this themselves. The quality is way too varied from all of his other recordings.
Icy Hot. Avoid contact with mucus.
That's how lazy this game is. They won't record new lines, they're just gonna take commercials that he's in and put them in the game. Another sound that I'm pretty sure they stole was this. It sounds almost identical to the announcer in Killer Instinct, unless they got Mike Willetti, which I don't think they did because according to his behind the voice actor page, he's still a producer at Double Helix. Aside from the main theme, which plays during every load screen and every menu in the game, the music is completely forgettable. I know during the first boss, they have a cover of Beat It playing in the background. I guess that's where all the IndieGoGo money went. All the other tracks of the OST are just generic loops played over and over again depending on the level. Nothing ever sticks out to you, and I'm a very big stickler for music. I like to notice it in my game and impact the gameplay, but in here I never do. Even during the QTE dance sequence during the second boss, I never remembered the music from that. That's pretty fucking bad, but I don't know what I was expecting when this game is so cheap, lazy, and soulless. So let's talk about the story. It certainly feels like it's written by a middle schooler in 2014, or someone with the brain capacity of one. The game just came out and it already feels outdated. It has such hip lines as, YOLO dude, catch me outside, how about that? Do you even lift bro? And the most topical of ever, Leroy Jenkins. Oh, what? They made a Leroy Jenkins joke. Fuck off. So the main framework of the story is that baby Shaq was found in a river by a Chinese lady and was raised to be a Shaolin monk by a guy named Ye Ye to protect the earth to stop the god of death Yenlo Wang. Yenlo Wang has a bunch of demons disguised as celebrities to make people act stupid, quote unquote. So Shaq must go across the world and stop these demons that are in disguise to make people stupid and then take on Yenlo Wang. The opening's art style didn't even look that bad to begin with. It was going for more of like a simplistic manga style with black and white, but as soon as they introduced color and Shaq was an adult, it completely goes downhill. They try to keep Shaq's full body in frame as little as possible, and you'll understand why after you look at this fucking clip. Oh no. Every single scene where you could see his entire body, it's so weird. The proportions are off. His legs look so stumpy and his body looks way too bulky. The overall cutscene art style also doesn't really match or work of the game's actual art style. All the original promotions showed Shaq looking like this, but then later down the line they started using this cartoon drawing of Shaq. I'm guessing that halfway through development they decided to switch styles because the artist left, because they have a shit ton of art by this guy on the IndieGoGo, and then you never see any of this in the actual game itself. So the boss of the first level, I'm not really sure, is supposed to be either a Donald Trump reference or a basketball reference. And that's kind of the issue with this game, is you have to think of your target audience. The people who back this game are in it for the meme. They're not going to know basketball references. Maybe rappers at best, but the mid-boss of the first level, I had no idea who they were supposed to be referencing either. Granted, I'm uncultured, but that's besides the point. During the boss of the 5th mission, he makes a Betty Ford reference. He says, "Get this guy to Betty Ford." For those who are unaware, Betty Ford is the first lady of the President Gerald Ford during 1974 to 1977. In 1982, she co-founded the Betty Ford Center, which was a rehab center in Rancho Mirage, California. No one is gonna understand that reference. All the people who are playing this are nearly fucking half the age of when this shit was established. Who is this joke for? This game's comedy routine is like having a fucking identity crisis. At times it wants to reference old shit nobody is gonna get, and then it tries to reference hip, quote-unquote, shit that's already outdated by the time the game came out. The rest of the comedy completely falls flat, or comes off just offensive because it's so bad and lazy.
I will kick you in your vagina.
Shaq's master pretty much exists to push the plot along, which is fine, whatever. But when he's not pushing the plot along, he's just there to be used for gay jokes, like this scene at the very beginning of the game plays.
You knew my secret.
I seen your browser history. Some things are better left unsaid.
What? No, I lent my computer to a guy at work.
I don't know if this is implying that he's supposed to be a pedophile or that he's gay. Because if it's gay, then that means people are after him for being gay. That just looks bad. This is like the Adam Sandler approach to comedy, the most lowbrow, basic bitch comedy that's at the expense of others, that when you really think about it isn't really a joke, it's just offensive. It's not like a well-formulated joke, it's just, haha, look at them, they're insert ethnicity here. Hung Lao is the first mission of the game and probably the least offensive of them all just by how boring and bland it is. As the game goes on, the levels get more and more obnoxious with terrible game design, so I'll be going through each of the levels and talk about all of their issues. Each mission ranges about 30 minutes more or less in length depending on how stuck you get in certain bullshit areas. The third level's final boss is particularly obnoxious, but we'll get into that later. So yeah, back to Hung Lao. This is where I started to realize how much of a shit show I was getting myself into. Between hearing the first enemy's voice, which was an IndieGoGo backers, and the level of jokes I could be expecting, making hit pop culture references like, "Have you seen Ghostbusters and Avengers?" Then they make a snide comment about how they didn't make enough IndieGoGo backing money to have animations for combat for Yay the Master. When your game takes 4 years to make, and it's this level of quality where I could complete it in 2 hours, after you promised all of this shit and nothing is in the game, you probably should not be making these jokes. This game is so poorly put together, you realize if you're not fighting the boss for 2 seconds, you just run around, you realize how fast it actually breaks. Like Frizzle just starts teleporting everywhere. After you beat him, you do some more boring garbage until you meet the final boss, which, like I stated earlier, I'm not really sure if it's supposed to be like a basketball reference, like an owner or something, or Donald Trump. Might be Dan Schneider even. I don't know. So then after you beat him, he does a laser beam, and then it hits Yay. And then it has the only joke I laughed at in the whole game, where he just keeps saying gold bond, because every time he says it, he gets paid, so he just keeps saying it over and over again right before he dies. That was the funniest joke, and even then it's not that funny. It got a small snicker out of me. As Yay's dying, he explains to Shaq what he has to do and has to go fight all the fucking demons. So the first one you have to fight is, I'm pretty sure, is a Justin Bieber reference. An outdated Justin Bieber reference nonetheless. His name is Babyface, and they make a joke about how they wanted to ship him back to his home country. Kind of like how people used to say send Justin Bieber back to Canada. But this doesn't really make sense anymore because no one really hates on Justin Bieber. People are kind of over it. We got bigger assholes to complain about that are ruining other people's lives actually. After going through the standard area room battles where they just fight a bunch of enemies until it says you could go go forward, you run into the projectile spammer of this level. I honestly have no idea how to explain this character. I'll just show you their introduction, you can get an idea of what they're like.
Are you one of them new Ghostbusters?
No, my brother. This here's grape soda. Sodium benzoate, dash o' purple, and high fructose corn syrup to top it off.
Since this is a Justin Bieber parody, I'm pretty sure, I assume they wanted to have little girls as the main enemy, but one, that would cause them to have to model them, and two, they couldn't have Shaq beating up kids, so they just gave him steroid meatheads to fight. The next section is what I like to call gimmick rooms. These rooms usually ranged about 5 minutes in length. They have you use one of the interactable items or an ability to fight off the hordes of enemies or their stupid gimmick they have set up across the room that you can't get near. In this room, they have you stuck on one end of the screen throwing kegs at the projectile spammers who you can't get to because they are divided by a giant pool of grape soda that for some reason insta-kills you if you touch it. After you defeat them, you get to go to a sewer level, which is just more of the same until you reach another gimmick room with a crane that you have to keep activating to swipe away all the enemies because they threw way too many to actually reasonably fight. After this, you finally reach Babyface. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, but that's what the Justin Bieber parody is called. And he's a chicken and he shoots chickens at you. Haha, get it? Because Justin Bieber was made fun of being a pussy and a cow or whatever. This boss fight's all around pretty boring, but then I found a bug and you can replicate. If you stand a certain distance from him and then you just use the ground pound, you can make him fall into the floor. And this happens. I could not get near him because the barrage attack never stopped because he was stuck in the ground. The only way I actually managed to beat the boss was because it entered the dance sequence where you have to do a QTE section, which auto-centers us to the middle of the floor. If not, I probably would have just had to restart. The third mission has you going to LA to fight who I assume is to be Nicki Minaj because they keep talking about her ass. And that was, you know, a big thing back in 2014 about that album with her ass on it or some shit. I don't fucking know. So you get to LA and then you get this lovely cutscene.
Seriously, bro, do you even lift?
Along with this one.
Stay away from candy, you freak.
I will beat you like a drum. Wait, you're a man, right?
How dare you ask? This is LA. I'm non-gender binary, which means half and half.
Then half of you is about to catch a beating.
In this level, the big enemies are guys riding motorcycles, but you kill them in one hit by just hitting a trigger near them. That's cool. This level goes on for like 35 fucking minutes and it's boring. It has nothing to it. Now this is gonna sound really repetitive, but this level is probably the most boring. That's because you don't do anything different. It's basically Hung Lao reskinned. At least with the last level, you had the stupid garbage with the grape soda pool, even though it was really obnoxious and took way too long. So you finally get to the boss and it turns out to be a bait and switch and you fight Diamond? I have no idea who this character is supposed to be referencing at all. If you know, please let me know in the comments. This is undoubtedly the worst boss in the entire game. I've had this idea for a video planned of what makes a boss good or bad for like ever. I'm pretty sure someone's probably already made it since there's a million video essays out there right now. But in this think piece to make me look smarter, it was basically the main point for what makes a bad boss in my opinion is if your boss is not interesting, what they do to cover it up so people don't realize is they just throw tons of little mobs out that you also have to fight in tandem with the main boss. A lot of the really weak Dark Souls bosses do this, like the Royal Rat Authority, the Spider Queen from 2 that I forget. Actually, a lot of the bosses in 2 do this. Maybe that's because it's a bad game. When bosses do this, this is usually because they're not interesting to be on their own. They have nothing going for them, so they have to distract you with tiny little mobs so you don't realize, wait, this boss is boring as fuck and shit. Diamond might as well just be any other mob that runs at you. The only thing that makes her different is the most obnoxious thing about her. She slings her whip at you, which makes it so you can't move at all. And you have to waggle your stick left and right to break free. But while having to do this, you're surrounded by tons of little mobs, so your health bar goes down incredibly fast. If any of you are familiar with the YouTuber Balrog, I was talking to him about playing this game because he's the only other person I know that subjected himself to this pile of shit. He said he was stuck on this boss for 3 hours because he ran into a bug where you couldn't see the direction of the left stick you had to push it towards. So he ended up just keep dying over and over again. To further solidify that all these enemies are the exact same, just reskinned over and over again, during one attempt at the boss, I ran into a bug where the wrong enemy types ran onto the stage. Instead of the meatheads, it was the Chinese fighters from Hung Lao, and they served the same exact purpose. So after you beat Diamond, Shaq's like, well, how do I find out where Candy is? So he pulls out his smartphone and calls Anonymous to ask for help. This is things that happen in this game. I'm not making this up. I really wish I was.
does. So Anonymous help him find out where Candy is, and then he rides a bike with a gay biker all the way to Bel Air. Apparently, even though Shaq is supposed to be a Chinese rickshaw driver, which he keeps bringing up throughout the game, and everyone else does too, they go, that guy's Chinese, right? You're Chinese. I've never seen a Chinaman look like that. These are all lines in the game. But when you're in Bel Air, there's tons of icy hot ads with Shaq in them. Why? Other than the obvious obnoxious product placement. That doesn't make any sense within this world. But I guess expecting any sort of world building is asking too much from this game. So once you finally get to Candy, this scene happens. I'm just going to show you because, again, I have no idea how to put this into words.
Taco.
Drop the taco, Candy.
How did you find me?
The boss fight is just a giant floating ass that farts at you. This is pinnacle of comedy, Shaq. I love it so much. I clap. You are such a fucking genius. After you defeat the giant ass and it dies, you then find what I assume to be Lindsay Lohan reference.
Man, my favorite child actress. It breaks my heart to see someone so talented fall so far. I wish I could help.
And you take a jetpack off her and you fly all the way to a desert island where you fight not Nazis. This level's super annoying because the freeze attack that Diamond used during the boss fight that made you have to use the analog stick to break free is now a basic bitch enemy. I have no idea who the final boss of this level is supposed to be parodying. Like, this doesn't have any consistency. Like, all the enemies leading up to this are supposed to be like Nazis because they have comical German voices, but then you get to this guy and he's like a Braveheart reference and I don't fucking know. And then they had the Betty Ford reference I talked about earlier and you just beat him and whatever. Hung Lao is now in danger and Shaq's freaking out going, I don't know how to get back. So the ghost of Ye Ye appears in the sky and tells him to use his Go Bomb, where a giant whale shows up and he kind of looks like Daru from Steins Gate. This is definitely the weirdest part of the game because he's just riding Daru the whale who speaks in sounds. I actually really like this part. If the whole game was like this, I'd probably like it a lot more. But unfortunately, the rest is just really unfunny jokes and pop culture references. The final mission, which is just Hung Lao but destroyed, is 45 minutes of gimmick rooms. It is a fucking slog. It is the worst level in the game. It really made me want to uninstall, but I was doing this video so I had to see through it to the end. The boss is whatever and forgettable. You beat it relatively quickly. About halfway through the level, they have this fourth wall breaking scene where Shaq starts talking to the developer and tells them to change the music, and the guy speaks to him in a broken English accent. So I go, okay, I guess that's just a joke.
Stop. Hey, game designer, get down here.
Yes, the Shaq, I hear.
Stop with the unlimited enemies. That's some free-to-play crap.
I thought it was good idea.
What do you think this is, Flappy Shack?
Okay, I give you something freaky fresh.
You know when you make fun of something and then do the exact same thing you're making fun of isn't funny. It's really obnoxious, especially since you've been doing it for the whole fucking game. But then once I beat the game and I'm actually looking through the credits for once to see who fucking made this piece of shit, I started to notice something. All of their names are Russian. Look at this. Not just like one or two, all of them. So then I started doing some digging and I can't find any websites for Mad Dog Studios. The only pages that I saw related to them were on GameSpot.com and GiantBomb.com. Then I went and looked up Big D's Production, which for some reason shares the same CEO from Saber Interactive. Big D's Production also doesn't have a website either. So Saber Interactive may actually just be Big D's, but they're not really Big D's, but who fucking knows. Then I found Wired Productions, which is the publisher, had a Discord server, and I went in there and checked it out, and it seems that anytime people ask them questions about Shaq Fu, they just turn them to Ask Saber Interactive. So I guess that does confirm Saber Interactive is the developer for this game. But then why say Big D's? Is this because Shaq's a big fucking goofball? This just makes no fucking sense. So then I got sent in circles all the way till I could message Saber Interactive on Facebook, but I feared for my life that the Russians would come and kill me, so I didn't do it. All that aside, they do leave a stinger for a sequel where they have to go take on the person who makes everybody the stupidest of them all, Kanye West. Ugh, fuck this game. I beat this in 2 hours, and it was miserable. This isn't even
even like funny bad. Like you could play like a funny bad game, kind of like Ride to Hell Retribution, where it's just like you laugh at it and you're like, oh my god, this is so bad. How did anybody think this is good? No, that's not that. This is depressing bad. This is making you angry bad that this exists. This is the Silent Hill Homecoming of Shaq Fu. Those are words I don't want to be put in the same sentence, but I did. This was awful and miserable, and I am embarrassed to have backed this. Hopefully you guys did get some entertainment out of this video though, and I want to say thank you for watching and sitting through this 28-minute video. If you're new to this channel, I do happen to have other videos where I shit on things that I don't like. Most of it's anime. I do a couple video games here and there occasionally, but I also have recommendation videos where I talk about things that I like, so it's not all negative, because I don't like being a depressing person. But anyway, thank you guys again for watching, and see you next time.